Sounds good.
Okay, so Doug from Spirit FM in Virginia. Also, you guys cover parts of a little bit of North Carolina and West Virginia, right?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
do. Yeah, we cover a lot of area for sure.
Yeah. So he's here with me, and this is a typical coaching session. Basically, he sends 3 breaks. I spend about 45 minutes listening, putting together an email, and listening passively, listening actively, uh, thinking about some of the stuff we might have gone over in previous weeks, and then we meet on Zoom. So Doug and I have been together coaching probably this summer will be, my goodness, 3 years. And you
Yeah,
were
it's
on
been
it.
about 3 years.
What's that?
It's been about 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And you were on a team show, and that person moved, and now you've been solo for a year, right?
Yeah, a year and a half. Yeah.
Year and a
hmm
half. My goodness.
hmm
And so there was all of that Doug and I worked through because the team show, Doug brought kind of some emotions, some of his character brand diamond, but it relied on the co-host to bring other emotions, and together, they were a great show together. But now Doug has the weight of the show on his shoulders, and he has to expand, the range of emotion, see life through different eyes, touch on painting scenes with colorful adjectives, all kinds of stuff. And I'm just really proud of Doug. This week's session here is just full of goodness. And you'll see as I go through this how it works, and then at the end, what happens. And we'll get to that here shortly. But I usually kind of tell people here's what I heard overall, all 3 breaks. Like, here's what really stuck out to me as I was listening actively and passively. So, Doug, I heard family. There was a local reference in there, which I think for local radio to breathe and live and go to church and go out to eat and go to the grocery store is an important part of being a part of the fabric of local community, and it's something that the national brands in radio cannot do. And so is it a secret winning thing? No, but it's one of 50 things that will help you connect to a listener if they know you live and work and breathe where they live and work and breathe. I think there's a companionship there aspect to it. So I heard that. Relationships, real life, great storytelling, revealing, friendly, upbeat, welcoming, conversational, easy topics for the listener to join in. They were 2 relationship breaks, and well, really 3 relationship breaks and 1 work break. And then Doug is implementing now self-deprecation and self-evaluating. He would do that from time to time, but we talked about that probably last week or the week before, and I think, Doug, you're practicing that now, right?
hmm
Okay. Here's the first break. It's about taking someone to the dentist office. Listen to this hook line, this bring in line. The song ends, and then this is what Doug says.
You've probably never been kicked in the chest when you've gone to the dentist. I'm Doug on your encouraging Spirit FM.
This is one of the techniques that Doug and I have been talking about, putting the listener into a unique and memorable bring in line. So you're putting them into the story, and excuse me, being kicked at the dentist is very memorable. It's like, what's going on here? You're driving down the road as a listener, got stuff on your mind, the song ends, and then the DJ says kicked at the dentist. That's a lean in moment, right? That's like,
hmm
where's this going? So really, really nicely done, Doug. And we're funneling the story now to his daughter, Riley. Listen to how he introduces her.
So, me and my wife, we have a 1-year-old. Her name's Riley, and today was her very first dentist appointment. We took
You have to attach a name with the relationship, and it helps to add the age, because in your right brain imagination, you can see a 1-year-old. Instead, if you just said Riley, my daughter Riley, what is she, 1, 8, 15? Don't know. Can't go to the story in great detail without you telling me how old she is. So, Doug, you're doing this every break now, right? That you talk
Yes.
about your kids. Does it get old? Do you feel like you're being redundant, or do you realize it's important?
Yeah, I think there's definitely the importance there because you do, you bring in those new listeners, you have people to connect, and then it is those things people bring up when you're out in the community at a concert. People say, "Oh yeah, you told me about your kid. I know how old," so it
Yeah,
does make that connection.
absolutely. And new listeners and casual passive listeners, they don't catch this stuff. They don't know your life. And
Mhm.
so you just have to constantly say, you know, my 1-year-old Riley, my 3-year-old Reagan. Okay, let's continue.
Took her to a dentist over in the Windhurst area here in Lynchburg.
So there's good. Lyndhurst area. I wouldn't say here in Lynchburg because if I'm in North Carolina, I'm not here in Lynchburg, right?
Okay.
I would
That's
say the
good. Yeah.
Lyndhurst area in Lynchburg, but
Okay.
I wouldn't define your location as here. Uh,
Mm,
I mean, obviously you're there in Lynchburg. You're not there in
right.
Roanoke. You're not there in West Virginia or whatever. Um, but here means the radio station's there,
Hmm.
which it's not in North Carolina. It's here in North Carolina or here in West Virginia. So
Right.
I would leave that here part out. But okay,
Okay.
so before I hit record, I told Doug, I said, I have nothing like to suggest for you to correct. I forgot about that. I found something, but that's it. I promise.
That's good.
All right. So I want you to listen to Doug's great storytelling with adjectives and verbs.
And while we were there, we were like, okay, how is this really going to go? Riley is not a fan of her teeth being brushed at all, but she settled into the big brown chair. She was sitting there. They were leaning her
Big brown chair. Colorful.
back. And as soon as she starts to get leaned back, the tears begin to roll. So the dental hygienist, her name was Crystal. She was very patient and very kind.
I love how you respected her and referenced her and said her name and cheered for her. Nicely done.
She said, how about one of you hold her and then just lay her back into my lap and I'll brush her teeth. So we get this all set up. I'm holding Riley. She's hugging me. I lean her back to begin the teeth brushing. And as this is happening, Riley is kicking me in the stomach. She's upset. She's sad. My wife is trying to comfort her. Our
Emotions.
3-year-old Reagan is trying to comfort her.
3-year-old Reagan.
And ultimately, I feel like the dental hygienist kind of knew that this is something that happens quite frequently. And all we told her after was, hey, this happens every night at our house at 7:30. So welcome to the family.
Oh my gosh. That is an amazing exit. You have 3 amazing exits. I can't wait to play the other 2 breaks. Conversational. The break started in one place. It journeyed with emotion and colorful storytelling, and then it ended with wittiness and in a different place. Doug, that's in my best of folder for you. Matter of fact, all 3 of these are in my best of folder that I keep for you this week. So that doesn't happen
Thank
very
you.
often, does it?
No, it doesn't. No, it was a fun. At the exit was the hardest part for me to kind of piece together how to get out of that because it was, it's one of those things where I didn't want to funnel back out. I didn't want to
Or repeat
hourglass it.
yourself.
Right. Or yeah. So that was kind of the tricky part, but yeah, I feel like it landed well. So
Oh, it did, man. Whatever time and energy you took to think, how am I going to get out of this, was just great. And it was witty. People smiled, listeners probably smiled, if not laughed out loud with you. I mean, that was amazing.
thank you.
Okay. Doug's going to be self-deprecating in this break. And listen to how he puts the listener into the bring-in line. He's putting them into this story. That's activating the right brain imagination.
Think about the last time something embarrassing happened at work to you. I'm Doug right here on your encouraging Spirit FM.
And again, he's upbeat, he's friendly, he's welcoming.
So today we wrapped up our staff meeting. I was walking back to my office.
She got the bring in line. This is what we're talking about. And now the story begins and it starts to funnel. Doug's talking about his life. And at the bottom of the funnel, out the little hole at the end of the exit break, Doug can only fit. Doesn't widen back out to the listener. He keeps going down this funnel to the bottom to this little hole about his story, and it gets deeper and deeper and deeper, and it's very revealing, revealing, and revealing. Those are crumbs of connection that we talk about. Doug, you're killing it, man. This is so good.
And I have one of those. It's not a Stanley cup, but it is one of those, kind of tumbler cups. They're metal. And I had a pen that had one of those little clips on it that you can put onto a notebook. Well, I was going to set stuff down, and somehow the pen, the hook on it, clipped around the cup. So I went to set the cup down. I set it down. I go to grab the pen. I pull it, and it dumps and spills everywhere on my computer, onto my shirt, onto my pants. The cup rolls around and makes a very loud rattling noise. And
Great storytelling. Like, it wasn't too much. It was just enough for me to understand what was happening. And this is self-deprecating, right? You're talking about like a oops that you had at work. And those, that puts down listeners' defenses when you're self-deprecating and you can laugh at yourself and tell dumb stories about dumb stuff you've done in your life.
Jess from the morning show, she stops by and says, "Hey, is everything okay?" And it's
And I love how you're talking about the morning show and Jess. Like, hey,
Mhm.
you guys are friends. You're in two
Right.
different
Mhm.
days, parts of the radio station, but you do talk and you're friends.
Mhm.
It's funny that she did this because Jess is usually the one that's, I'll say it, a little clumsy, sometimes dumps stuff or falls or spills something.
Revealing about Jess.
And in that moment, she was the one that brought me paper towels. She was the one that helped me cleaned up. And
And even though you talked about her clumsiness, you kind of redeem yourself and talk about her
Right.
kindness.
Yeah.
I just realized, next time it happens to her, I just need to be kinder.
Great self-evaluating exit. So you had self-deprecation and self-evaluating in the same break. Tell me how you decided to put that together.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Like, obviously, telling the story is one part of it, but then trying to find a way to, always trying to find a way to kind of cross promote the shows or, talk about things like that. And it just kind of fit really well. And like you said, like you pointed out, I didn't want it to be like I wanted the self-deprecation to be about me. I didn't want it to seem like I was taking a shot at her. So that's why, you kind of go through that process of that. But the good part is, if people listen to her show, she shares those stories about herself as well. So it all kind of fits together in that way.
Yeah. And I love how you didn't assume that everyone listened to the morning show and you explained those things because lowest common denominator is a new listener who may not have any kind of relationship with Jesus or religious background. They just found the station or their life got changed and they're new here. Easy for people to understand. Okay, another story. This time we're not at the dentist office. We're not at Doug's work. We are at Doug's home. And so we get to, in our imagination, learn about those three different places with his great, colorful storytelling. And again, Doug, you put the listener into this very, very wide bring-in line.
Think about a time you had a really interesting conversation with a kid. I'm Doug on your Encouraging Spirit FM.
Doug and I've talked about this over the years. I think a lot of Christian radio stations just hone in on the bullseye of the target, which are parents. But we've done things differently recently to welcome as many people from the song to the conversation. So we talk about spaces where kids might be. That includes parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, school teachers, older siblings, babysitters, you name it, right? Everyone listening can think about kids in their space. And Doug has become an expert at doing it this way.
Think about a time you had a really interesting conversation with a kid. I'm Doug on your Encouraging Spirit
Could be at the grocery store and you don't have kids,
FM. So me and my wife, we have a 3-year-old. Her name's Reagan.
Attaching the name, the relationship, the age for my brain imagination to, okay, now I kind of can see this little person, not a teenager.
And in both of our girls' rooms, Reagan, our 3-year-old, Riley, our 1-year-old, we have the Alexa smart speakers in there. And this is something that we like to use to kind of control the lights. And we also know that they love listening to music. But sometimes when it's raining or there's a storm, a notification will go off and the girls get a little bit scared. So typically we leave Reagan's unplugged at night and then we plug it back in the morning. Well, the other night she was all settled into her bed.
And again, they get scared. That's an emotion. emotional connectivity.
I was doing some things out in the kitchen and I hear her calling for me. So I go in there and she says, Daddy, did you forget to unplug my Alexa?
This is a 3-year-old. Reminder, this is a 3-year-old.
And I said, oh, yeah, I did forget to do that. So I go over, unplug it, set the cord down on the ground, and I'm getting ready to walk out. And she says, hey, real quick. And I said, yeah, what? She said, tomorrow morning, don't forget to plug it back in because I don't know about you, but when I get up in the morning and I'm getting dressed, I love to listen to some music. And she said, do you like listening to music too? I said, yeah, I love to listen to music.
Just a little daddy-daughter moment.
And it's just in that moment that conversation was just so funny to me because she's 3, but she's acting like she's 13.
Bam! Exit. Amazing. Break started in one place, journeyed, exited in another. How'd you come up with that exit?
So that was one where I think so I typically voice track my show. So that's one of those where I think the first time I did it, I kind of hourglassed it and went back out to the listeners. So I think the second time I was like, okay, I can't do that. I need to approach this in a way where, we're looking at her, but then it's kind of how it is definitely something we talk about a lot with her is how we feel like she is 3 going on 13. So I think that was just kind of a more natural fit to kind of exit out of that break.
Well, it was really, really, really good. And I'm glad that real life kind of made it to your show with saying that, right? I was going to write on top of this email too. I don't think I had it in my, what I heard. Doug has a dry sense of humor and he's very witty. And that comes out more and more in these breaks. And I love that. Okay. So at the end of a coaching session, I go to this week's one big thing. I'm going to share my screen again. Basically, all 3 of these breaks go straight into my best of folder of you. And I just think you're a shining example of putting the listener first. What does that mean? I've attached a link to this article. Does the listener care filter? You're talking about relationships and stuff at work. Real easy things, as we know from Tommy Kramer best practices that I've shared early on. That's 2 of the topics of the 5 that are real easy to get into. Word economy. These breaks were 112, minute 11, minute 17, and you do shorter breaks. You've done 45, 43. And then not repeating yourself. That's a big thing for DJs. They come back and they wrap up the break and it's tempting to repeat yourself and for emphasis. And you don't do that, man. They just stand alone. And man, you've come so far from that team show to bearing all the responsibility as well as being the general manager of the station to do a show that's voice tracked, but doesn't sound voice tracked and that is interesting and emotional connectivity and all the things that we just talked about. So I'm super proud of you. And I'm glad we captured this because this is an amazing week for you. I think in that consistency, it's hard, isn't it?
Yes.
Break after
Yeah.
break.
Yeah, I mean, it's important. Yeah, I think that's where, the prep comes in and just we've talked about it before, just, living life and, having those moments to reflect and just be, all of those things, self-deprecating, really start to analyze and things like that as well. Like, I think that's been a big part of the growth of the show for sure, is to step into those things and just be willing to share those moments that aren't always the best, because those are the moments that are going to relate the most. And those are the things we hear from listeners is like, hey, when you told that story about how you failed as a parent, that related to me and really makes me realize that I'm just like you, so
Amazing.
it's a big part.
Amazing. I'll stop with this. Doug has a pool, portable pool. He puts in the driveway. And he was talking about it with Austin French, and Austin had some questions. Anyway, portable pool is a topic, but it's going to turn into 2 breaks.
Yeah.
I think DJs need to have a topic that can have multiple stories in that topic, different people's vantage points that can become an ongoing conversation for 3 breaks in that hour, or up at the same time every day that week, because people are habitual when they get into the car and listen to the radio station or while they're working. So I can't wait to hear those. I know you're going to do those later this week. Hopefully that'll be part of our session in
Yeah.
2 weeks too, if you think about it. So thanks,
Cool.
man. Appreciate you weathering
you.
through this and being a shining example.
Thank you. Appreciate it.